Hello and welcome to today's speaker series. Thank you for joining us. I'm Danielle Mezzanato and I have Julie Coleman here with me today. And I just want to remind everyone that our Slido code is hashtag India Report, and the poll for attendance will be open for about the next 10 minutes. So be sure to enter your A number and your name in that attendance poll. And don't forget that the Q&A will be open throughout this whole session, and we'll be getting to your questions that you have at the end. If you read other questions and you like them, you can like those questions and bump them up so that they'll be more likely to be asked. And with that, I'm going to let Julie introduce to us our guests for today.
Okay, so it's a great honor to introduce our speaker today, Carolyn Lavoie. I've had that opportunity to work very close with her this year as her teaching assistant for the Urban Design Studio. And we've been focused on Pune, India. She led an international virtual studio this fall where we collaborated with architecture students and mentors she met during her time in India over her sabbatical. So over 2 weeks, all the participants did an inventory, analysis, and design for a critical area along the Mutha River in Pune. The process she guided our students through, the quality of the work produced, and the unique opportunity to engage with students and mentors in India on a deep level all point to her excellence and dedication as an educator and a designer. She leaves no detail unexplored and isn't afraid of big ideas. She has received numerous awards for her role as an educator and designer. To name a few of the most recent, the 2019 Council of Educators in Landscape Architecture Faculty Award of Excellence in Design Studio, the 2019 Utah APA Outstanding Achievement Award for City of Ogden in 2019, and the 2018 Utah ASLA Honor Award for the City of Pocatello. And I'm sure we'll see some awards for the projects we did in our studio this fall. And with that, I'll give it over to Carolyn. We look forward to hearing more about your experience and perspective of India.
Thank you so much, Julie. What a nice introduction. Well, welcome everyone. Today I'd like to talk about sabbatical experience and reflection. But first I want to say where I'm from. I'm from a land of river and lakes on northern Quebec, and you guessed it, we speak French. I'm from a town that is called Jonquière, and it's located along the Rivière aux Sables, which means the river sand. So from my hometown, I moved to Montreal, then to Los Angeles, then Logan, Utah in 1995. I had the privilege in my 25 years career at USU to have 3 sabbaticals and a senior specialist Fulbright in urban planning in Argentina. Today is about why we do sabbaticals. So, but first, what's a sabbatical? Traditionally, for universities, it is a time for a professor to study or travel, and it's also traditionally for a year for every 7 years worked. The archaic root of the word Sabbath is to rest every 7th increment. So for this third sabbatical, it was a time for having new experiences and reflections about these new experiences. Experiences that I can bring into studio course that I teach, like this fall, as Julie mentioned, for Pune, and also looking at new lines of work inquiries, as well as continuing and deepen some work that I had already started, but never had enough time to explore. In the fall of 2019, I pursued a chapter of my Western landscape drawing into an interdisciplinary literature and criticism conference. I was invited to present a paper on drawing the desert in USA, in Lorient, Brittany, a maritime town, and it was organized by Université de Bretagne Sud. In this presentation, Reading the Changing Desert of the American West, Perception and Reality, I was reflecting about my own drawing practice and work. I was also discussing shift from perception and reality. This is just a few examples, and this one's a very quick gestural drawing while moving in the Bears Ears National Monument. Two more detailed and longer drawings of another desert, Chaco Canyon, and looking and capturing the kivas. This shows my drawing process in a sort of meditative state. During spring and fall 2019, my project From Border to Border, a transect of Highway 89, included traveling the Highway 89 from the border of Mexico to the border of Canada, which is about 3,600 miles back and forth. And my base map was about 12 feet long. So in this project, I explore and I continue to research to communicate the role and the identity of a landscape, its borders, its region, its character with the Highway 89, to increase our and my understanding of the large scale landscapes, kind of a gestalt of the West, if you will. The geomorphological and cultural landscape for highway is significant in the West, stitching together the scenographic experience to history from basin to range. I had 2 GoPros on the car, and I'm grateful that others share this journey. My friend and colleague, Stacy Harwood, from department head at University of Utah in planning, Todd Johnson, and my dear sister, Chantal. So the first leg was Logan to Mexico, which was the first loop. And my research question is, how does Highway 89 transform these landscape and communities? One example of drawing was in Tubac, drawing the Spanish influence. The second loop was from Logan to Canada, with a lot of place in between, of course. I've had amazing experience in Native American lands where the plains are as important as the mountains where Highway 89 crosses. This was the ultimate American road trip. This is going to be a future exhibition that will grow out of this project, but I want to share with you a 2-minute video by my former student, Brandon Blower. This will just give you a glimpse of my sequential experience. This is from Mexico to northern border in Canada. I would like to shift my experience now from the west to the east, my experience in India. So my first 2 weeks there was spent in the northern part. And then I was an invited guest professor at 2 universities, one in Bengaluru and the other in Pune. Going to India was made possible because of an alum of the LEP program, Prashant Abhat. I visited a variety of places, and I was stationed in Bengaluru in Prashanta's office apartment. This has been going to India a dream for at least 10 years. Journaling is very important when I travel, and I did it there for almost 100 days. In India, it was not always possible to draw, especially on UNESCO sites. So journaling was a way to record events. And what happens in one day of travel is so rich that these journeys are great teachers. And I always take notes from the great teachers. So I first landed in Bengaluru on December 16. And I was trying to get settled and venturing out. So these are my first impression when we got in Bengaluru, and I was shocked with the traffic on a Monday evening at 6:30. And my friendly cows walking in the street, traffic like nothing else. And sometimes I'll hear one of the babies in the middle of the traffic sounds. In the early evenings, I would often get fresh coconut water, and this woman was very talented at this. I get fresh fruit close to my apartment and a very small grocery store. There's a lot of construction in Bengaluru everywhere, and trees are sometimes protected or built around. There's beautiful remaining tree canopy of the colonial times in Bengaluru. Unfortunately, about 6,000 of these mature trees were cut off to give place to the metro lines. All around, there's amazing scaffolding structure as well, and the men are just walking and floating around that structure. Other technique for construction, and they are most works of arts. As I mentioned, the first 2 weeks, we're traveling around the north. So the first stop was in Delhi. In Chandni Chowk, the old core area of Delhi, rests the Heritage Hotel Haveli Dharampura, which is a restored 19th century mansion. It was built in 1887, and it took 6 years to renovate. This is part of the cultural heritage of the Mughal era, and it's been awarded the UNESCO Asia Pacific Award for Cultural and Heritage. We arrived there very late at night, and the place is only accessible by rolling up your luggage to the hotel. It was hard to maneuver even in the daytime, where there is a lot of 2- and 3-wheeler traffic. And the city was under massive protest when we were there, so we could not venture out at night. Chandni Chowk has numerous layers of information and layers of wire in their streets. It was easy to get caught in traffic, pedestrian traffic in this case, and so dense and narrow streets at times that it's difficult for your wayfinding. And sometimes the streets became labyrinths and difficult to know where to go. But there's so many things you can carry on a rickshaw. And the other slide shows the presence of the 2-wheelers, which is the preferred mode of transportation for most of Indians. The India street life is so rich. Masala chai tea in a clay cup was my favorite thing from the street. There were lots of happy and friendly people and street vendors. Other street vendors closer to a temple. How many people can you fit on a rickshaw? This was on our way from New Delhi with our driver, and we stopped at one of the many UNESCO sites, and this one is Humayun Tomb Complex. And the Humayun tomb is the tomb of the Mughal Emperor Humayun in Delhi. And the tomb was the result of a wife's loves for her deceased husband. This was the view from the mausoleum. In the 16th century tomb of the noble Isa Khan Niazi is located in the same Humayun complex. And the simpler mosque of Isa Khan is located west of the mausoleum. The Lodi Garden is a city park also situated in the New Delhi area and spread over 90 acres. We see here the Bara Gumbad, literally means big dome, and is a medieval monument. It is believed to have the earliest constructed full dome of any building in Delhi. Agra is a city on the banks of the Yamuna River in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Looking at the Taj Mahal from the other side of the river, the Taj Mahal is an immense 17th century mausoleum of white marble by order of the Mughal Emperor Shah Jahan in memory of his favorite wife. It combines Persian, Islamic, and Hindu styles. When we arrived to visit in the morning, it was not visible because of the fog, but also mostly pollution as well. It was beautiful surrounding. And finally, a little later, we could see the Taj Mahal. It's a beautiful detail, but the Taj Mahal is also at risk now because of the pollution level. In fact, when we were there, the level of PM 2.5 was at 450, which is hazardous. Located west of Agra is in the state of Uttar Pradesh. Fatehpur Sikri was founded in 1569. Fatehpur Sikri means the city of victory, and it is another UNESCO site. The city was the capital for about 10 years, and this grand complex of buildings saw the height of the Mughal Empire. The city was abandoned due to water scarcity. This is the Diwan-i-Khas, hall of private audience of the Emperor Akbar. This emperor cultivated new ideas, such as the syncretic religion Din-Ilahi, which proposed equality among all people. He spread the theories of all religions are the same. He had three wives of three different religions, a Muslim, Hindu, and a Christian, and he built a house for each. In this hall, there was the emperor. This is where the emperor consulted his advisor. Beautiful stone carved detail. In walking a little bit to another part of the complex, which includes one of the large mosques of India, the Jama Masjid. In the same complex, this is the tomb of Salim Chishti to honor the famous 16th century Sufi saint. The level of detail is incredible. This is all marble. This is all made of marble. About 3 kilometers from the capital city of Delhi, Jaipur, popularly known as the Pink City of India because of red and pink sandstone, is the largest city and capital in the state of Rajasthan. The royalty built the Hawa Mahal for women who were not allowed to public space so that they could observe life from those small windows into the public sphere. I could do a quick drawing of the hall of the public audience. Also, as part of the royal complex sits the Jantar Mantar, and is a collection of the 19 architectural astronomical instruments built by 18th century Rajput king. It featured the world's largest stone sundial. It is a UNESCO site. No drawings allowed. Located within the compound of the Hawa Mahal, This sundial was the most spectacular in scale and the largest in the world. The main purpose of this observatory was to compile astronomical table. Astrology in India is very important, and still today people use astrology to determine how they marry and the major decision in your life. Speaking of wedding, I was invited to go to one in Madurai in south of India, and this was considered a small wedding with about 800 to 1,000 people. And it goes from morning to the evening and even to the weekend. And I'm gonna play a little bit of this. I felt very privileged to be invited to the wedding. This is the morning in the temple. Then the evening goes to the larger ceremony where people bring their gifts and have their photograph taken with the couple. This goes for 5 hours. Feeding half of the guests at one time because as you can imagine, with 1,000 people, it's a big business to get this. And I was warned that you can only eat by hand in the south. This is me and the sari. So going back with the Jaipur, and close to Jaipur is the located on a hill is the Amer Fort, which is part of a small town and about 7 miles from Jaipur. And the Amer Fort was was originally built by the Minas. Each concubine had her own quarter and could not see or hear another. There's beautiful detail in the palace complex. Then Chandigarh. Chandigarh is a city that is in a stark contrast with the other Indian cities that I just showed you and I visited. Chandigarh, is the capital of the northern Indian states of Punjab and Haryana, and was designed by Le Corbusier around 1950. But in 1949, his predecessor, the American planner and architect Albert Mayer, was first tasked to design this new city because of his personal relationship with Nehru. Le Corbusier copied Meyer, including his green space, which emphasized the cellular neighborhood and traffic segregation, without giving him credit. But on December 25th, everything was closed except the Next-Chand Rock Garden, which is an 18-acre sculpture garden in the city of Chandigarh. This was a wonderful find. Next-Chand is a self-taught Indian artist and started building the garden secretly because this work was illegal. He was able to hide it for about 18 years. He used debris of demolished villages to build Chandigarh. So he used scrap metals, oil drums, fabric, pottery, jewelry, and more. This was a great work of art. Somebody was asking me about highlight in this trip, and this is one of them. He made about 10,000 of these figurines in this garden. And this is just to show you the magical effect to experience it from the inside. And this is how the figurines are displayed in all of these outdoor rooms. With 10,000 of these, this was representing the lifetime work of art. So I was a guest professor at Christ University School of Architecture in Bengaluru. The campus was located in the southern part of Bengaluru, and the school, the program was about 3 years old, not the university. University had mostly engineer program. So when I got there, I was asked to develop a master plan for the campus. The people there, so I wanted to know who was there. So they have the gardener living in the premise of the campus, as well as some students and some staff. And on the right, here's my colleague, Anita Susilan, who is the head of department of the School of Architecture during a critique. So the first few days I walked around with my colleague, and we started developing ideas around what we could observe. And the first part was the existing sustainable practice on campus with their planting of the trees and the water harvesting and waste, and also the optimum land use of the density of the built environment within the ground. There is a lot of mature growth of fruit trees and productive landscape on their ground. Most sustainable practice, again, with the coconut and the harvesting of the coconut. And there was a lot of chickens and also animals roaming around all on the campus. It's wonderful to hear them during the day. And you can see also the planting of the coconut and the teaks, among others. And also water harvesting in a series of basin that was in the core of the campus. So when I was there, I wanted to say there's not the same technology available than here. The drone access is very different than here, and not a lot of printer, and I could not get a roll of tracing paper, but sheets of tracing paper, and you had to stitch them together with the glue sticks. But I started sketching after our walk what I felt and should be the center around, and how instead of turning back to the water, that how we should could turn in, and without interfering with the existing structure containing the water, for reason of safety for the students and for other users. There is almost no water after the month of April in those basins. So the master plan sketches reinforce the role of the main engineering building that that we see here. And of the main entry, there's a major tree alignment here. And trying to create a pedestrian mall here that follow the length of all the other engineering buildings. Center in the water, again, and create this linear core, a pedestrian mall, and the water coming in. Using the great entry alley, which was underutilized. And those were just a few ideas. And this was a very quick sketch to discuss the main idea of keeping a little bit of a freedom of planting as well in the center, and while keeping these the rhythm of the organized planting of the tree groves. Now I transport you to my daily routine of going on and to the university. And I'm showing the slides because of the dominance of the metro line that I just spoke about, and how many mature trees have to be cut for implementing it. And our students right now in Pune also work with a similar, may work to work with similar issues. So they were a little tea time at the university, and they quickly learned that I needed a lot more tea than that. So they started to bring me the pot in the morning. The first day of class at Christ University, in the left, two of my colleagues, Ranjita and Kirti, which became great friends. And to the right, the head of the department, Anita Susilam. And in the middle, all the very sweet and small group of junior architecture students. Here talking about fast drawing to develop parties in design. And critique day. And our studio was taking place in Ayangarkulam, which I will show you a photograph of. It's a small village known across India for the skills of the silk hand weaving. This is an old-fashioned but effective transect to show students the structure and organization of these small villages in relationship to the big water bodies, and also the back of the houses, which used to be social space and now overgrown and not accessible. But before I was able to critique and help the students in their design project, I really felt I had to go there. So these took a night bus, and these are called sleepers, and there are 2 levels. And there are several companies when you get to bus in these India places. But so anyway, this was part of my experience. Once I got to Ayangarkulam, there I met the people. And the project is really addressing issues of growth, as well as how to preserve a culture of hand silk weaver, but in a sustainable way of how to grow their economy so they be sustainable, they can sustain their practice. These are the people, some of the people in the village. And this is to show you the relationship between a larger area, town that's called Kanchipuram, also big producer of hand silk, and Ayangarkulam, the small village, in a relationship to the large river here. A lot of traditional housing. I'd like to show some of the organization of housing. There's no window on the side, but they often have courtyards. Courtyard is beyond the lady in here. The people were wonderful. And this is to show the way that the airflow works in there from the front to the back door. So the corridor is very important in these structure, and they don't need air conditioning. This slide shows you the loom, and so the practice of hand weaving is really integrated in their daily life, and they will do it for about 12 hours per day. And traditionally, the bed was underneath the loom. More of the use of the space in the kitchen area. And then a plan drawn to show, like, again, the corridor and the front room as a specific name that I forget here. And there is it's a form of a semi-public area for the residents. The looms and the producer and hand-woven silk sari here, just to show the complexity of how to install the loom, will take a very long time. So, and a sari would take about a month to weave. And to the left, the structure is to how these are the patterns for the saris. And so you can put the silk in here. So they really live and work, and it's a very hard work. This man was showing how it all happened, how the magic happened. And they cannot make any mistake. If they do, they lose a lot of money if they do. So it is a matter of family business, but also with the neighbors. So when they would try to set the looms for the length of the 3 saris. And so this shows you like the length of the setting. And once they're done, this is about the length of 3 little facade home. And then they will each help for each home to set their own loom. They're very proud of their work, and as they should be. The work is amazingly beautiful, as shown in these 2 examples of saris. And I bought my sari in Kanchipuram that evening. This streetscape shows you like the relationship between the traditional housing and the newer home that are built, which create a problem not only in scale, but also that the traditional setting is not respected, and that brings a lot of problems just of climatic issues and so on. Some of the streets in that area. And as part of the town, there are temples and water, a larger body of water. And the temple grounds are also act as public space here. Banyan tree with the body of water here. And the woman each morning, either at the border of the river or these water body, do their washing. So back to the school and the studio, the architects, they kind of have this big smile that day because they finally were getting the idea of creating a storyboard and partie idea. One of the great highlights after the studio was over at Christ University. I was invited to the village of one of my students. And this is Shalini and her sister. And I really felt privileged to be their family guest, as I was the first one outside the family that they ever invited to come to their home. They had a young mother, super generous, and I had fresh coconut water for me every day. Everything is in construction always, and now they're constructing their new house. And it's a very organic process. All the time discussion where the windows are going to be and changing a wall to make an entry door. And this is the land that they have. They were growing garlic, and so this was covering the garlic crop. And the other photograph is from the top of the roof of the new home being construction. And they had an amazing sacred tree, a banyan tree in India. And it's a tree that knows when to grow for its own branch support. It's a great place to bring their cows every day as well. So they were very close to their animals, and I was loving to see that, and had a great respect. And the baby cow was their pet. And everything there was recycled and no need for trash collection. I was in fact the one with my plastic bottle of water. I love the way everything around revolved around the food. So Shalubana is making coconut chutney by hand because the electricity was not always reliable, because they were living just outside the boundaries of that the village. They had very neat cutting board with a knife sticking out of the board. The thresholds are important everywhere in India, and same here. So for this house is to thank and protect their home. I love their rituals. And then that was the little porch with the stubborn goat and the two-wheelers, which is the way to travel for most people in India. The family was self-sufficient, having grown their own rice enough for 2 years. And as part of the extended family, this was the time of COVID was getting really bad. So about 7 days before I had to leave. So they offered me to stay if I could not come back home. And lots of talks with the girls at night. And this was my last day to saying goodbye when I had to come back to Bengaluru to go back to United States. But the last day I had to have my henna. Now we're moving to Pune, which is Pune is widely regarded as the major IT hub of India, and also known as the Oxford of the East. So I was invited as a guest professor and mentor to co-lead a 2-week urban ecology workshop at the BNCA College of Architecture for Women. And this is, the photograph is a day of going on visiting sites. So the group of students and mentor and stakeholder at the last day of presentation. Indians use their rooftop as living quarter. And to the left is my colleague Nia. And to the right, head of department, Swati Sahasrabudi, who is in the, for the department in landscape architecture. So in the workshop that we did in February, the students identified multiple sites. Our aim was to coordinate human man-made system with the natural ones. The students identified the units of natural system in the city for hills, forests, lakes, and river. So what came out of this for me was a reasonable understanding of the city. And then we built on these insights for this fall urban design studio, and also for the workshop that we just finished last week, where we started to trace our understanding of the Muta River with its reaches. So they rented a bus with the student in February. So we visit all the sites together. And Madhav on the right also participated in our workshop of last week. During site visits, I was doing a little quick sketch to show students how to look for visual insights for the lakes, and then the rivers, and a smaller temple by the river that are supposed to be flooded, and to the main Omkareshwar temple at night, and which is situated in Pune in the Shanivar Pet. And it's a 17th century temple, and that represent Maratha culture and heritage. Pune had a crematorium and their ritual along the river. So this fall, as I mentioned, and we just finished, we did a joint international workshop with the college. And this time it was with landscape architecture students, also digital architecture, environmental architecture, and a Bachelor of Architecture. And so at USU, we had to work on 3 phases before we worked with them. And I will not show all the photograph because of the work, because we don't have time, and we will be recording our final presentation on November 20th. But we also looked at different scales with them, and we focused on the old and the new, which is the older area of Pune, the Muta River, and the newer area here. I do want to share with you some photograph that I, in the older quarter, just to show you some of the traditional architecture in that area and with great character. And I was very lucky again to have the chance to visit it with one of my colleagues in Pune. Her name is Amrita, and her family. They show me these wonderful places, streets and practices that people are in the streets, in their courtyard, alleys. And the tambat in the making, so it's a traditional practice. And it's almost music. It's loud, but then in that area, there's a lot of small temples are everywhere. And I was told that they will not demolish temples for new construction. They will build around them. And the same thing with sacred trees. The small temples and around the temples are public space. And I mentioned that before for the Iyengar Kulam area. And was the same here. And here with some women after we visited the temple. So besides lifetime friendships, the sabbatical in India allowed me to venture a new horizon with the 2 studios and some reflection, as I talked about, or food for thought, if you will. And I will mention 3 of these. So the first one is about collaboration in women. It's a reflection piece on the workshop I participated with my colleague Swati Sarah Sraboudi. The second, I was interviewed about the future of city by Christine Monsoon in the spring, and my response was heavily influenced with my trip to India and COVID-19. Third, a reflection piece about trees and my relationships with them, titled With Respect for Trees. Trees of my youth, trees of my adulthood, from my chestnut here, and trees of India, such as the rain tree and the great banyan tree. So we went from big Indian city to smaller town villages of rural India. Now I'd like to show you a more spiritual India I experienced, moving from Auroville, Wai, and finish with Sarnath and Varanasi in particular. Auroville is an utopian community, and it was founded in 1968 by Mira Alfassa and designed by architect Roger Anger. Mira Alfassa was a French woman known locally as the Mother. The idea of Auroville was inspired by her close and secretive relationship with the Indian philosopher and yoga guru Sri Aurobindo. It is the UNESCO has protected the township since its birth in 1968. So radiating from the center, and the center is called the Matri Mandir, there are 4 zones of the city area: the residential zone, the industrial zone, the cultural and educational zone, and the international zone. And around the city or the urban area lies a green belt, which is an environmental research and resource area. It includes farms and forestry and botanical garden and seed bank, etc. The Matri Mandir is the soul of Auroville and a place for meditation. It's a golden metallic sphere in the center of the town. It was conceived as a symbol of the divines, answer to man's aspiration for perfection. Silence is maintained inside the Matri Mandir to ensure the tranquility of the space, and the entire area surrounding the Matri Mandir is called the peace area. This is the sphere inside the Matri Mandir. I was lucky enough to know a few architects and their mother who practices meditation there and was allowed to go inside the Matri Mandir. Inside there is a spiraling ramp leads upwards to a chamber of polished white marble referred to as a place to find one's consciousness. The model here shows you the entryway to the Matri Mandir. As one exits the Matri Mandir in silence, and as the last part of the experience is the banyan tree grove. There is no photograph allowed from the inside or outside of the ground. This photo was for far away. Also in the state of Tamil Nadu and really close to Auroville is the city of Puducherry of former French India. There I was fascinated by the columns. The columns are thought to bring prosperity to homes. And every morning in Tamil Nadu, women draw columns on the ground with white rice flowers. And through the day, the drawing gets walked on, washed out in the rain and blown around by the wind. And new ones are made freshly the next day. So every day before sunrise, the floor of the house or wherever the column may be drawn is clean with water. In the olden days, I really like this, the column were drawn in coarse rice flour so the ants could not have to walk too far to get some food. And it also invited the birds. And there too, I tasted my first fresh sugar cane. Wai is a town in Maharashtra state and located west of Pune. Wai is known for its ghats on the banks of the Krishna River and its temples. It's a town of some prominence in the days of the Peshwa, and Peshwa is a word derived from the Persian word foremost leader. And Wai has been a cultural center. So on a beautiful, another highlight for me was a day spent there. And this is on a beautiful early morning day from the Krishna Ghat and looking at the Menawali temple, which is one of the most famous there. No one spoke English there, and the written character were not Roman, not even the number. So I was very lucky to be accompanied by my colleague, BNC colleague Anupama, and a driver. Drawing from the Krishna Ghat while hearing the voice of the local woman doing their daily wash on the banks. Here you can see dividing the wall, but also like a small bridge. And on one side there were the Ghat and the other the more natural state, though they also could see some of the temple that can be submerged. It was fun to see the kids playing further down, closer to the city core. This is the Dramapuru Ghat. And as I mentioned, there were very few places I could do drawing, but I was able in Wai. And we happened to be there on the weekly market, and they were very beautiful market, very beautiful and fresh produce. So I'd like to finish sharing the journey experience with Sarnath and Varanasi. Varanasi is the city on the banks of the Ganges River in Uttar Pradesh, India. But first, Sarnath. Sarnath is a small village in Uttar Pradesh, situated about 13 kilometers northeast of the holy city of Varanasi. It is believed that Buddha is believed to have founded Buddhism here around 528 BC, when he gave his first sermon, The Settling in Motion of the Wheel of Dharma. This is the surrounding context of the Dhammak Stupa. And there's beautiful stone carving details of the Dharmak Stupa. In Varanasi is a city in the northern India state of Uttar Pradesh, dating to the 11th century BC. It's regarded as the spiritual capital of India, and the city draws Hindu pilgrims who bathe in the Ganges River, sacred waters, and perform funeral rites. I have to say that why is also thought about the holy city in the same way of Varanasi, but in the state of Maharashtra. This is street life in Varanasi. So from the Ghats into the city and the alleys, cold people are making fires to stay warm. More on street life. And here the traffic with the rickshaw that brought us to Sarnath. And the old-fashioned rickshaws on the left, and the street vendors and also barbers. Day and night street vendors. And again, the city cows, undisturbed by the traffic at night, and at night turning their head into the store wishing they would buy something too. And then sometimes you need a little something familiar with real sugar cane. It really reminded me of my youth. But I prefer getting warm with a masala chai, which is a must. We got very cold and we stopped at this beautiful renovated hotel along the Ghat. And I want to show this to you because it's a Banaras dancehall style called Kathak, where the dancer has a constant dialogue with her musician. So on the Ganges, approaching the site of the Arti ceremony performed in the evening. So the Ganges Arti at Varanasi is an uplifting spiritual ritual. So the Hindu believe that dying here and getting cremated along the banks of the holy Ganges River allows one to break the cycle of rebirth and attain salvation, making it a major center for pilgrimage. We move on the river as the city got darker and the ceremonies more intense. While facing the river, the Hindu priests use lamps which are circled around in a clockwise manner, accompanied by chants or song in praise of Mother Ganga. The port is full of people and just walk from one boat to the other. And I have a short extract here of the Ganges, the RT. It's about 35 seconds. And then I only have 4 more slides. And this is towards the end of the event as we're leaving, and the night got after the event very quiet. So I'd like to conclude with some of more thoughts. No one can predict what exactly will happen in a year. And my sabbatical was a journey and opportunity for new deep experiences. Taking the risk of going to places I have never been, these travels stimulate my imagination and provide me with ideas, and most of all, putting myself in a situation of learning in appreciation of others, learning from people, landscape, places, and new situation to learn about new culture in India and places with the Highway 89. According to many, travel may be the richest source of knowledge, of empathy, of understanding. If the challenges of the future are global in nature, and if they require knowledge, empathy, understanding, then we all need to better understand the global universe, its natures, its people, and sabbaticals may just be the answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn, so much for such an interesting and engaging talk. I think through this, you show the importance of record keeping through photography and sketching. And like you said, the importance of everyone to explore. We have a few questions from our audience members on Slido. So to start out, I'd like to ask you, what parallels did you see between the culture and landscape in India, and what opposites?
Parallel in landscape and culture, you mean in terms of appreciation and the way that they use the land?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to interpret that question. So are there ways that the culture is in sync with the landscape?
Yeah.
And in what ways is it opposing the landscape?
I think I would say maybe like with the Ganges would be a good example. And it's interesting because before I came, I could not believe that people would even think of bathing in the Ganges River. And when I went to Varanasi, it made sense and I understood why they would do it. And so I think in that way, the parallels, they're in sync with their landscape and really understanding that. But then when we were in sometime in the train, and then you see the edge of Delhi and the landscape. And so those landscape are not in sync, and then we see the hardship of the people living in the margin and living. So I guess the contrast are something that's important to mention.
Kind of to follow that up, thinking about the contrast of the US culture and the culture in India, one viewer asked, what are some of the ideas that your India students explore that are different from what you see in your US students, and how they integrate daily activities or culture into the design of spaces?
Good questions. In India, I think that the students seem to spend a lot more time in the analysis, and also understand deep. Oh, it's hard. I don't want to say that our students are not deep understanding, but the culture is so rich that I think they know how to immerse themselves, to take the time to understand everything. And I think our students can see that also when we experience in Pune. But then there's also a lot of similarities that I see between the students in US and India. The analysis paralysis is the same for all. So they have a hard time to engage in the design. And so that's something that's universal. I think that I found that was universal. It's the first to immerse. That's why I was showing that image with the student, that they finally understood the parti idea. So that was interesting. And I saw that in Pune as well with the women students that were working at the high level of analysis as well in Pune area, because the areas are so complex. So I see both similarities and differences. I really appreciate that they're very aware of their culture and they know their history, and it was very impressive. All the students that when I was in Kanchipuram, and the students that were there with me, like some student took me and showed me a few temples, and they just knew by heart their history. I was very impressed. So I don't know if that answers your questions. So yeah.
No, I think so. That's really interesting to hear about. So just as a final question from one of our viewers, and then we can wrap up. What features of the Indian landscape are most important to landscape architecture or urban design? So I know you pointed to the river as being very important and central. Are there any other things that stood out to you that might be different than the way things are here?
The sacred grove, I didn't talk about that. I was brought in the west side of Pune to a sacred grove. And so that's a very important part of their landscape. So the relationship, I think, with trees is very important for them. Trees can be celebrated as a shrine, and they can be protected. And so, but like us, sometimes there are things that are in transformation. So Sacred Grove is also, it used to be a place of where no one could build, and now it is also, with the pressure of growth, it's always, areas is always in danger, like the hills in Pune. But I think the forest is very important, their forest and hills. And of their landscape, I would say that the built landscape of the temples is extremely rich. So they have the natural landscape and the man-made landscape. And so the temples, there's so many different temples and so rich. And this, I had like, I don't know, more than 2,000 slides that I could have talked about, but I only selected the part of it. And so. Does this answer the question? Yeah.
Yes, yes, it does. And it's really fascinating to hear and kind of compare to, I think, our own experiences of traveling to various places and being in places where the culture seems to move a bit slower, and how often the connection to the environment and to earth is stronger in those slower moving places. Um, I want to also invite your dear friend Sarah Gordon to join us. I know she's on the call and she has some questions for you. So, Sarah, I see you're on here. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, I just wanted to ask really briefly what you think the importance of making connections with people is, and not just visiting sites or seeing famous tourist sites or interesting places, but what's the importance of making real connections with people that you experienced during your sabbatical?
Thank you for asking this question, because I think, starting, we visited a lot of places, didn't know people in the northern part, but meeting the driver was the best thing ever, because it was a relationship with the people. This is how you when you travel, you have to be open to this. So we can't plan a full year of every minute, but meeting the people is the way that you experience the culture. That being invited to people in their home is one of the best way. I was invited to my head of the department at Swati's place, and that was such a pleasure to be there. The family that I spent in the village, I I learned so much by connecting with people, and then you make lifelong relationship with them, and so you want to. And these are the experience I remember. So that's why I named the people I was with. Like I could not have been to Hawaii without Anumapa. I could not have been. And I could not have been going to India without knowing Prashanta. so these are, uh, I think it is more important to create this connection, and then the places you visit comes with it. So I don't know. But this was, as I say, the highlight of going to India was immense. And I know Sarah for several years, and she knew that 10 years ago I was trying to do a sabbatical there, and I was so naive in 10 years ago about what I could do, and going there without knowledge of anything. So well, thank you for allowing me to share these. It was a great way for me to really reflect about all the things that I've seen, the people I've met, and things I learned. So it's really, really, really nice.
And thank you, Carolyn. It was a pleasure to hear about your experience. I want to remind everyone that our final speakers for this semester will be next Friday on November 13th. We will be joined with Rebecca Leonard and Stephen Spears. And I want to thank everyone again for joining us tonight, and wish you all a great weekend.